Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Lunch with Eaters today. We're very excited to get today's program started, so we're going to go ahead and do that. We've had folks filling in into the participation list, and we are going to go ahead and get started. So allow me to welcome you. My name is Jeff Menhas. I'm from the UCI Alumni Association. It's great to see you virtually, and very much positive to see you dial into our virtual programming. Some of you have been here before, but we're excited to bring on new Anteaters to see what we're doing with virtual programs. And today's Lunch with Eaters will be very special. This is our 8th installment of the program. We do it twice a month. It's a virtual lunch and learn program built specifically for our UCI alumni and friends in the community. We have an archive of previous Lunch with Eaters recordings on our website. We have a very special website called Anteaters Go Virtual that has been just flooded with content over the past 4 or 5 months. All of our virtual programs have been recorded and put up there, in addition to Lunch with Eaters. Our events calendar for upcoming virtual programs, downloadable content for you and the whole family to enjoy, ways to get involved and help students and connect with other alumni with our mentoring program, the Anteater Network, and alumni chapters. So we'll share that link with you in the follow-up email, and it'll also be on the last slide of this program. Again, that's called Anteaters Go Virtual. And we're all in this together. So we figured this would be a perfect time to flood all of our alumni with virtual content, and we've done just that. On the housekeeping side, everyone is muted today to eliminate background noise and interference. We do encourage you, though, to be very vocal with your questions. Feel free to submit your questions throughout the program for our featured speaker. We're going to have a Q&A session, a live Q&A session towards the last 15 minutes of this program. So if you have questions throughout, I encourage you to submit those on the chat function or the Q&A, and we'll get to as many of those as possible. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the fantastic alumnus who we're here to learn from today. And that would be Jesse Gutierrez, class of 2003. Jesse Gutierrez is a Foreign Service Officer at the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, which we'll call it throughout the program. It's a federal agency that leads the U.S. government's international development and humanitarian assistance. He joined USAID as an engineering officer and worked in post-disaster reconstruction projects in the Republic of Georgia, Haiti, Pakistan, and Nepal. He is currently a contracting officer with USAID Uganda, where he manages over $300 million in the economic growth, education, and governance portfolios. Everybody virtually, please join me in welcoming Jesse Gutierrez to the program. I hear lots of virtual claps in the background. And there he is. Hi,
How
Jesse.
you doing? Hey, good to see you, Jeff. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you and thrilled to learn from you and your very unique experiences, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
first, before we get into your career path, or maybe this is a nice starting point, you yourself are a proud UCI alumnus. We actually studied at UCI at the same time.
Yeah.
Around the same time. Maybe you can talk or start with a little bit about your UCI days and the opportunity that UCI provided you from your perspective.
Sure. So yeah, I think UCI provided an opportunity, and definitely UCI is the American dream making machine. Just that's probably one of the big first bifurcating roads, and having gotten the opportunity to go to UCI changed my life. I applied to be a computer engineering major, and I didn't have a computer. I couldn't afford a computer for sure, and I didn't have access to a computer. So I wrote my personal statement on a piece of paper and mailed it in with my application. And I really think someone was compassionate enough to let me go through, and that's why I see that opportunity to go to UCI as an opportunity that allowed me to maybe gave me a little bit of a privilege that has allowed me throughout my life to get away or to go where I want to go to. So it's just I'm really grateful to UCI for that, and I had a great time there. I love UCI.
Well, that's great to hear. Oh, excuse me. As you may know, we have continued on that path in the last 20 years and become more of the advancer of the American dream. As you stated, we've been recognized for that, in fact, as being the most impactful by the New York Times on advancing the American dream. But so you had that personal experience. Talk about perhaps your desire. You seem to have known this early on, but your desire to travel and be abroad and see the world.
Sure. Oh, that's a great question. I think I couldn't travel for most of the time that I was in college, and I saw friends go and study overseas and come back and hear their stories, and oh, I really wanted to go, but I couldn't. I had to work, and it's just it was not feasible for me to do that. But I always thought, or from that's when I started the seed was planted that I really wanted to work overseas, that I really wanted to figure out how to travel and do whatever I did professionally, civil engineering. I'm a civil engineer, so that's when I started trying to figure out how I could combine those two things.
Sorry, I was on mute there. One time a day at least, I'm good for that. So that might have been in your mind when you were thinking about making your career transition. Perhaps you can talk about that. You started off in land development and public works, and then you changed careers.
Yeah, and I think I'll try to really talk about in the next part about all of the things that all the transitions and how is it that I plan them and how I go about my transitions. I really like transitions, and being in the foreign service forces me to transition every 2 to 4 years, go to a new country, get a new job. You know, I started and graduating from UCI. I started working in land development, and then I switched 3 or 4 times companies. And then I went to work in public works in LA, and that was a little bit of a change. And you know, at that point, just the type of projects that I was working on was not what I thought I would be doing with my life. That's not what my purpose or what I thought my purpose would be. Even though I thought I was really good at it, and it made me feel smart. Just solving the puzzles in the right way makes you feel smart when you're doing engineering. But I wanted a little more. So you know, I throughout my travels, and I started traveling and seeing other things, other places and other needs, and other types of infrastructure in other places. And just in comparison to what I was doing, I figured at that point that I really wanted to use my skills, my professional skills, to help fight some of these problems with people that are probably the most underprivileged around the world, and find a purpose in my life in that way. There's a lot of things that went into that decision, and maybe I'll go through them throughout my talk. But I think that's kind of a progression, my career progression and the transitions that I've made.
Yeah, fantastic. So I know you will talk about some of them, but there's one in particular that you had mentioned to me before, a volunteer trip you took to Mexico, and some of the things you noticed there, maybe earlier on in your studies and your career, that may have had an impact on you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I completely forgot. But yeah, when I was probably around 2004, I took a trip. I was volunteering with a group in Santa Ana, and there was music was part of it. And we went down to southern Mexico to study music in the communities. And I just remember one night being in this house where the group of us was staying, and then there was no water, and it had rained, and there was rivers all around us, and I was just surprised that there was no water when I could see so much water around us. So, and I thought, I definitely this is exactly where I can contribute if I figure out how to do. I didn't know what it was, international development or humanitarian assistance, but that's kind of what when I started looking into it. Really that first trip changed my life. Then I did a few more trips and just across the border here in Tijuana, just to help build houses and schools, and really just the sense of purpose that and fulfillment that you get, and to be able to use your skills to benefit someone directly. That's kind of what was the first hook.
Yeah, that's a wonderful story. So we'll hear about where that led you to USAID eventually. But I heard, before we get into that, I heard that for the first time, there are job opportunities with USAID. Could you tell me a little more about this? Tell our audience.
Sure, definitely. So yeah, we had a hire freeze for a few years, and just the way we hire is cyclical. So this time around, I think it's been a few years, maybe longer. I mean, probably 5 years since I know we were hiring. But now we have openings for foreign service officers, and I think you'll post the opportunities. We also have a really cool program. I just want to mention it. The Payne Fellowship. There's other fellowships, but this one in particular tries to get people that are underrepresented in the foreign service to get them on a career path to get into USAID. So I'm not sure the exact numbers, but they pay for a 2-year master's. So this is for recent graduates or people that are about to graduate. So they pay for their masters, and then they give them opportunities to do internships in DC and in missions overseas, USAID missions overseas. So once they graduate, they join the foreign service, and joining the foreign service is it's pretty hard. So it's a good way to go around the crowd. It's a great opportunity, and I think applications are open right now. I'm not exactly sure when they do, but I think it's soon. I think it's every August, and this could be we could have like a week to submit applications, but it's.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Jesse. I will say to the audience that links to these opportunities will be in the thank you email that you all receive as having attended this event. Now you're going to learn more about what USAID is now. Jesse has a video that we're going to roll that gives you a brief overview of USAID, and then Jesse's going to take over and give you his presentation. So let's roll that video, please. All right, so Jesse, yeah, please take it away. And the audience, one more time, I'll encourage you, if you do have questions for Jesse, just put those in the chat, and then we'll come back and circle back to those questions about 25 minutes from now. Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Well, again, really, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to have this forum to talk to people, students, fellows from UCI. And really, the reason I wanted to do this this talk, or to talk to more people about USAID, is because I rarely see people, I mean, from California or from UC schools in in the foreign service or in the government. And I know there's a lot, but definitely I think the vast majority of people that work for USA, I met four that people from UC schools, most of them were advanced degrees, and I met one an eater. So definitely, if I pique your interest, reach out to me. I'll tell you more about what it is and the experiences and any questions you may have. I really wanted to talk about a little bit about my experience, but I wanted to focus, like Jeff alluded in the introduction, I wanted to focus on transitions and career transitions and how I got to where I am now. And I started thinking about this earlier this year. Someone asked me at a fundraiser when I was still in Kampala. I was evacuated 5 months ago, and I'm currently in Newport, but going back next month, I think. So 6 months, someone asked me, how did you get out of where you are? And I took it, I didn't take it well. It wasn't like, how did your career go? But it got me, I thought it was a little bit of a little condescending in the context of the conversation. But really got me thinking into how is it, like, what are the steps in my life that have gotten me to where I am now? And not that I'm super successful or I make a lot of money, but I really love what I do. And that's why I wanted to share that with all of you. And just in that, I kind of analyzed some of the things that I did, and I figured out that there's a few steps that I've taken in all of my career transitions. Done a few, and currently even within USAID, I continue to make transitions just to figure out the things that I love and satisfy and what I want to be doing. So I'll split it into those three things. One of them was dream, visualize, plan, and then take a risk. So I'll try to structure my talk around those 4 points. I guess first, the first one, when I started thinking about working overseas, it was just a dream. There was no definition to that dream. It was just a very vague idea of what is it that I wanted to do, and just traveling just sounded like an adventure. Seeing other places and being in a world so big, I really wanted to just go to other countries and experience other cultures, and in a sense to also test myself, knowing that I could make it here. I wanted also to know that I could make it in other places. So so that was but that was really just a dream. I think, like I mentioned earlier in my conversation with Jeff, when I started to visualize and really put the definition on what that dream looked like, it's when I did some trips. I went to Mexico and to a remote area in Brazil in the Amazons, and just I started seeing or some of the things that I could work on and that I could contribute to solving some of the problems that I started to learn a lot about international development at that point, and trying to figure out how is that I could fit in that. So I started to visualize that, and then I guess the hardest part is planning for it, and that's probably where sometimes we get stuck when we're trying to make a career transition or any move, I think. So for me, it was I had to figure out the things that I needed to do to still be to be able to come back professionally. So I decided I needed a master's. I decided I needed to get my professional engineering license, and then I needed to get to a certain place where I could feel that it was good to go and I can come back to that place. And then also in the plan, just kind of tried to figure out what was I good at, what were the skills that I needed to build on, and what were the experiences that I needed to enhance. And the other trip that I mentioned to Jeff, going to Tijuana across the border to help build schools, I didn't know at the time, but international experience was one of the big requirements for getting in the foreign service with USAID. And that was just a volunteer trip. I just did it because, you know, I had a weekend free, and some friends were going. It was a thing that was sponsored by the company that I was working with in Irvine, and I just decided to sign up, and just I just loved the work. So that's kind of that kind of got me into doing a little more of that, getting the experience. And I think I'm currently going through another transition, or I went through another transition in the past 4 or 5 years, going from an engineering officer to a contracting officer with USAID. And it's just, I really got to like the policies. I was posted in Washington before my current tour in Uganda, and I got to work on policy and making regulations, and a lot of I started helping a lot of missions with their own contracts, and I figured out that the legal aspect of things is something that I really enjoyed. It's just kind of putting everything together. So I'm working on a second master's right now on legal studies with construction and contracting as the emphasis. So that's kind of part of my planning of making that transition. Of you have to go out there, get the experience, but you also have to know what you love and what are the things that you really want to continue doing. I really love the construction and engineering, and I see myself doing it throughout my career at USAID, and that's something that I plan to hold to as I continue doing different tours, and I reach out to different missions around the world, and they reach out to me whenever there's questions related to construction. There's a few of us that have that type of experience at USAID, but not many. So that's one of the areas where, or one of the big important steps in making a career change, I think, just to plan for it and prepare yourself, figure out what sacrifices you're willing to make, that's the other important thing. There is in every change, I mean, change is constant in life, and it's just good to embrace it. But there are a lot of times there's sacrifices, and sometimes they're painful. You know, it's hard to go away from family, from parents, from aging parents. It's hard to be away from, you know, when the big events with your family happen. There's a lot of difficulties also with the foreign service. I won't get into them, but it's just it's good to learn and talk to people in the other professions, or in the profession that you're targeting if you're looking at career transition, just to learn more about some of the sacrifices as well as the exciting things. And the last thing was to take the risk. Really, it's just like a change is constant. So I think it's good to take the risk and try to go follow your heart and know where you want to go. So I think at this point, those are my steps or my transitions, and I figure that I kind of wanted to talk about those, but I also want to tell you about USAID and the work that I've done, and some of the work that we do. I mean, definitely nothing that we do is an individual effort. We have an amazing team. I really love my colleagues at USAID. They're just amazing people that join USAID because they want to change the world and want to have an impact in the world, whatever we are. My wife is also a foreign service officer with USAID, so you know, we love going out and contributing, and that's kind of our what brings us together. So on my story, my first tour was the Republic of Georgia in the Caucasus, just sandwiched between Armenia, Turkey, and Russia. And because of the invasion in 2008, we had we were investing a lot of money as the U.S. government in Georgia, and a lot of it was to help refugees or internally displaced persons with housing and infrastructure. So I really loved that job because you could see firsthand the impact of some of the work that we were doing, because people did not have homes, that people that were displaced from the occupied territory of North Ossetia and Abkhazia. So it was really really good experience to see that, and not just providing shelter, but we're working on water projects and sanitation, roads, and all kinds of other ways to promote economic growth. And even in that country, we're doing really large infrastructure projects on the electricity side of things, power transmission. So it was really a way to not only get to know the work that we do in many ways in all of the sectors that we work on, but also to work on very unique projects that we don't work on regularly. So it was really good experience, and I hope to go to Georgia again. Then I went to Republic of to Pakistan. That was my second tour, and Pakistan was what we call a critical priority country, which we had a few that were just countries that were in conflict or that were more difficult to live in as a U.S. diplomat. So the work there was this is one of the first, or one of the few countries in the world with USAID that we have a dedicated engineering office focused on reconstruction. And we were, I mean, Pakistan had a big earthquake that we were still working on, and they had a massive floods and a lot of other needs that really depend on infrastructure. Like we were building schools, we're also providing water, and one of the biggest contributors to infant mortality is there's no clean water in a lot of places. So we were helping with those projects. We were helping with universities and building buildings for universities. I was not able to see the country and to get out of Islamabad, but I just seen pictures. It's a beautiful country, and when I was allowed to go hiking around the towns, around the hills in Islamabad, they were just beautiful, and just very warm people and very very good people that you meet there. It's a different it's a good opportunity to just get to meet people and kind of get rid of the preconceptions that we have with people from other countries, and especially some countries that we may or may not have or conflict with as a country. So it's just good to just have that human connection, and I was really grateful for that opportunity. My next post was supposed to be South Africa, but I was not able to. There's some paperwork issues, and I was my tour was canceled because we're overcrowded in Pretoria, and I ended up in DC, which it's not what I wanted, and I ended up having an amazing time in DC. I ended up working in Nepal, which is when the earthquake happened when I was in DC, and just I flew out there, I think soon after the earthquake, and I just remember seeing some of the towns near the epicenter, Barbisi, and just seeing the completely grounded and the level of the magnitude of that disaster, and really just motivated me to try to help, try to figure out how to do things better, how to do things faster. And I think that's one of the things that keeps me going with USAID, that you always see that your work can have an impact. And yeah, so it's I did a few trips from there. I went to Uganda, and I worked with an amazing contracting team, and they asked me to go out there, and I ended up switching careers, what we call backstops at USAID, because I wanted to work with that team. I wanted to make that transition and work with those people. So that's where I am right now. I'm in Uganda, and I work on as a contracting officer. Really like it because I get to see a lot of everything, a lot of the other development projects that we do. So I think in my bio or short intro, it says I work with the economic growth, which we work with agriculture and also biodiversity. Also cover the education and office and child development office, and there we have traditional for USAID education programs, but also we help with some of the vulnerable orphans and children with education and these are kids that were affected by AIDS, and just learning about that and just being exposed to it all. It's just really humbling about the struggles and the impact that our work has, and where your taxpayers is going. I think we really take it seriously and try to be good stewards of your funds, of your taxpayer dollars. And then I also covered democracy and governance, and that's also amazing. Just learning more about policy and policy making, and it really was another thing that got me started into getting I'm working on a second master's on legal studies. So that was that policy making side of things. I kind of started from that exposure. I also want to tell you a little bit about the careers that we have, and then maybe I'll stop there. And then we'll take questions, so we have more of a conversation. But so in the Foreign Service, it's not like with USAID, it's not like the Foreign Service with the Department of State, where you there's a few cones there, but it's diplomacy, and it's managing the embassy or consular work with the visas and all that stuff and the legal components of that. But USAID really tries to get the technical officers or professionals from the US and take them overseas and try to do some replicate or some of the good practices that we do in the things that have gotten us, the US, where we are because of the people that we have, and trying to get some of that slice of talent and put it overseas and help out. So because of that, we manage projects that are aligned with some of the sectors that you would work on in domestically. So we have education as a backstop, as a track. So people that have worked in curriculum development or teachers, or in some sort of administration so that's kind of and a lot more than that, but that's kind of the gist of it. So it's education is one of the backstops. Then health, public health, and kind of figuring out some of the solving some of the really biggest problems that we have, especially in Africa with pandemics, and currently, of course, we have COVID, and that's why I'm here in California right now, and not in Uganda. So that's another track. There's environmental officers working on mitigating the environment, helping with biodiversity, preservation, conservation, or just ensuring that everything that we do does not affect the environment. Engineering, that was my first backstop. We also have accountants that are Foreign Service and that are posted in every mission. They're the controllers. They really control they're also development officers too. So it's just interesting that everyone has their own career profession, but everyone tries to figure out this development puzzle and contributes to it. So we all become development officers. Executive officers are the officers that handle the facilities and our HR and just make everything run smooth in our missions. We also have democracy people, economic growth, and private sector enterprise officers. So it really there's a lot of opportunities with USAID to bring your talents and figure out how to do them. Another thing that I wanted to talk about really was how the life of being in the Foreign Service works in terms of where we go. Definitely a sacrifice for a lot of people, moving people around. You've got kids, you have to figure out when you move them. But I move every 2 to 4 years to a new country. I love moving. I love change. And we get to bid on positions. We get a list of the positions that are available, and we try, and I don't know how they do it, but they tell us where we're going at the end of the day, and then we go there and we transfer. So it's a little it's exciting, but it's also it can be difficult to go through those transitions when you don't know where you're going, if you want to have control over everything. So it's for me, it's something exciting. It's something that keeps me going with USAID. That knowing that there's going to be change and opportunities for growth and learn. And I think every change has given me that opportunity. I think from here we can take questions.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Jesse. And we do have some great questions, so let's get into it. First, we'll start with you briefly alluded to it, but now you're in this COVID-19 pandemic. So how has the adaptation had to be for you and USAID?
Sure. So personally, we had everyone in the Foreign Service or working in agencies overseas had this global authorized departure where people had to, or were given the opportunity to come back to the U.S. We have a little one who was a year and a half at the time, which is 2. And she really couldn't tell us where something hurt, if it hurt, and we just decided that it was not worth the risk to be in a place without where the medical system could be overloaded. So we decided to come back. Personally, I mean, it's been difficult. It's difficult for those who stayed back in Uganda as well, because there's lockdowns and it's been a lot of work as well, being there and managing everything. For me, the biggest, and my wife, the biggest hardship is that we start work at 11 p.m., finish or 10, 11, finish at 2 in the morning, and then we have meetings again at 6 in the morning, and then we get to sleep a few hours on and off in the day. So, and then also, I guess that's personally, but we also we had some realignments of our programs. That's something that we're able to do with some of the existing programs on the ground, just to figure out how they could adapt to the changing situation. There's a lot of impacts on every economy. So some of the basic assumptions that our projects depended on were turned upside down, and we have to figure out how to continue our programs. So that was a lot of work trying to realign our portfolio. And then also we got additional money from Congress and the administration to help a lot of communities. I don't know I'm not the health expert, but I know we're doing a lot with COVID overseas as the news government.
Well, so we've got a lot of questions that are specific to understanding the program. So Judith Townsend asks, are tours of defined length, and then also how do you decide, or how are you assigned to a tour?
Sure. So tours are normally, I guess, 1 to 4 years. The 1-year tours are the hardship posts. There's a few not critical hardship posts, but that are 2 years. But most of our tours are 4 years, and they're usually broken into 2-year tours. We get home leave vacation in between, so that's on top of our annual leave. We get to come back to make sure that we don't go local, and just remember that we're American. So we come back for 6 weeks every 2 years, and it's a great opportunity to be with family too. But the bidding system, it's a bidding system for us, and it works different for the Department of State. But for us, there's a list that comes out, and then we choose our top or rank our options, and then every mission ranks back everyone, and then everyone sits down in a room and tries to figure out how to make sure that everyone gets assigned. If everyone wants to go to one place, only one person is going. So then it's pretty interesting. But so far we've gone to the places that we want to go to. So it's great. But we are worldwide available, so we have to go where we get assigned.
Great. Thank you, Jesse. I'd also like to acknowledge Soka Keo in the audience, who also asked the same question. Now, next question, Sean Young asks, is security clearance required?
Yes, so starting with USAID takes a while. It took me, I want to say, close to 2 years from the time that I applied. At the time that I got my letter saying that they wanted an interview. I had no idea who was writing calling me for an interview. But part of the process is getting a top secret security clearance for working in the Foreign Service. I think some of the positions in Washington required a secret position, a secret clearance. But yeah, for a Foreign Service, it's top secret.
Okay.
And also, we also need a medical clearance to know that you're healthy enough to travel overseas and be in places where you may not have immediate care as you would here.
Yeah, wow, that's very involved. So Sean also asks, since it's so involved, what is the time frame from submitting a job application to an interview, if successful, to the first day on the job? That whole span of time is how long?
So for me, it was, I want to say it was 2 years and 3 months. I know for others it's less. I know I've met people that have done it in 6 months. Maybe they already had a clearance but yeah, it takes a while. But I think the average is not what it took me. I think the average is around 9 months to a year.
And how about the time from submitting an application to potentially getting an interview?
Oh yeah. It really varies. I think it's for me it was a year, but I think it's about 4 months, 5 months. I've done screening of applications, and I know it's a very involved process. So and a lot of people review the application. So it takes probably around 4 months.
So that is quite involved. And so another thing, back to something you touched on when we were talking about COVID-19,
yeah.
An attendee asks, says, thank you for sharing about your family. How do you navigate this type of career with children in general? Is it even viable for families with young kids, which I think you're proving it is, but how do you navigate that?
Well, actually, I think it's great. I mean, the Foreign Service is really conscious. The government is very conscious on the impact and the sacrifice that and the strain that this puts on families. So they do a lot to make sure that they help us. So there is first on the community side, there's just a structure there that is very welcoming. Every time you go to a new post, that allows you to connect with people, almost make instant friends when you get to a new place. Or even before you get there, but they also pay for education of our kids. So for the most part, you know, we go to the kids go to the school of their choice in the country. We know which schools have great schools, or which countries have good schools, and you know, people in certain ranges try to target those. If you have kids in high school, you try to go to certain countries, Egypt or some of the other countries with great schools. But we get put in probably the best. The kids go to the best school in the country where we're in, and the government covers the cost. Some other kids choose not to go to those schools, or they don't provide what the kids need, and then they end up in boarding school. I know a few families choose that option to send their kids to boarding school, either abroad or back in the U.S. But with the time off and being able to come back, I think that they really try to make it easy for families. Of course, it's a sacrifice. I think the biggest sacrifice probably is for the spouses that are not in the system. It's just really difficult to make sometimes careers work, and it is a family decision that has to be made. If for someone that's married with kids, it's like everyone will be affected. So everyone has to know the challenges that it is. And I really encourage. There's a few books and talks definitely on YouTube and TED Talks on that explain that life and those sacrifices. But there also can great opportunities come out of that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. On that note, Jay Hijazi asks, is there an ideal age range for the job, or is there any hard requirements, max age, things like that?
Sure. So yeah, I think we're forced to retire at 60. So there is an age limit. It's not too young. I think ideally to build a good career. I joined when I was 30. So and we get to retire in 20 years, and you have to be 50. So it just matches for me that I'll be, when I hit 20 years with USAID, I'm gonna be when I'm gonna be 50 years old, and I'll be able to retire. I'm not sure if I'll retire, but I think that's where most of the people that come in at that range. Other people that come that are a little older usually already work in the sector, don't want to take too many steps back, but there's people from other agencies that transfer to our agency to be foreign service. So I think besides the hard limit, I think the bulk of people come in between 30 and 40. You need to have a master's, so and usually they look at experience. So it's rare to see people that are younger than 24, 25 years old, but there are some.
Okay, so we still have some more questions. We have time for about 2 to 3 more. This is a large in scope one from Daryl Neff. How does the current political climate affect your job?
Sure. It really, I think international development, it's one of those sectors that has bipartisan support, and really, there's agreement on the necessity of and the benefit that this type of investment provides for the U.S. It's not just from the American people, but I sincerely think that it benefits us back, and so we haven't seen impacts, negative impacts, I think, from disagreements in Congress or anything like that. We're still doing pretty good with our budget. So yeah. It's not just a diplomatic answer. It's something that people know in Washington, that it's important, and we continue funding and doing it. So far, I feel good about having a job.
Very good. Sean Young asks, can you articulate the difference between an engineer to a contract officer?
Sure. So as an engineering officer, I worked on managing construction projects, also figuring out what were the constraints to economic growth or to any type of development caused by the lack of infrastructure, and try to figure out plans for a country or for a county or for a state in a country on how to solve those problems. And then it's all about the technical issues. It's not just the construction itself, but understanding the role that infrastructure plays in an economy or in a society, really, and trying to design interventions and investments to tackle those problems, and then managing them along the way, which is project management, construction management, which is really project management is what we do as technical officers. I'm not a technical officer anymore as a contracting officer, but education, health, environment, economists, democracy and governance officers are technical officers, and they manage projects. They do almost traditional project management. And as a contracting officer, we have a warrant we can sign on behalf of the government those contracts for those projects or those grants that we're issuing. So it's a different track. We get additional education. We have to be warranted to be the only officer at post, maybe with the exception of the mission director, to sign on behalf of the government to allow our funds to be obligated into mechanisms. So what that means is that I need to know more about the legal side of things and the business side of things, just make sure that we're getting a good deal for the government. So I do a lot of just reading contracts on every sector now. Although I always try to continue to work on construction and engineering related things, because that's what I love. But yeah, so it's as involved in the field as well. Technical officers, and they're out in the field. They're working with communities. They're trying to understand their problems and respond with our programming to meet those problems. We are for the most part managing it, because we're responsible for all of those funds. Ultimately, the buck stops with us, but we're most of the time back in the office.
Well, Jesse, we're almost out of time, but I've got two really good questions that I wanted to squeeze in. So if you have some short answers. Okay. This one comes from John Shannon. He asks, what indoctrination is provided to understand local culture?
Sure. So it depends on the country. Some countries, sometimes we are forced to have a language, a 10-year language, but some countries require you to learn the language to go to that country. Some of the culture comes from those language classes. We also have, for Pakistan, I had a class, I think it's a couple of weeks of classes where we brought people from the country and to tell us about the country and just learn about the culture, the music, but also being in Washington with bureaus that represent every section, region that we work in. So usually you learn a lot from just walking the hallways and talking to people, and they tell you what it is. Also, when you go to the country, the embassy provides you with additional classes, just so everyone understands where we are and how to not screw up. And I've screwed up sometimes when I've extended my hand to shake a hand when I wasn't supposed to, but it's a learning process.
Well, on the flip side of the occasional screw up, maybe this will be a nice final note to leave us on. What might be your one of your favorite memories that sticks with you, seeing the impact that you make firsthand?
That's a good question and a hard question. And some of the when I think of what stands out, like some of the most vivid memories are some of the hardest things that I've seen, maybe in Haiti, in the National Hospital, in the emergency room, and just walking in and seeing how much they need our help, and then seeing in other places where they have gotten some of our help to build decent facilities to provide healthcare. So on the reconstruction side, Haiti was a big disaster. So was Nepal, and seeing I can still see it in my mind. The flattened town, which it's incredible to see, and then seeing a popping up of a clinic that we built that was still serving people, and we built upon that clinic. So really, when you see, for me, the times that I've got the experience to see firsthand the impact of our work, it's what keeps me going. And sometimes it means that you get to see some really hard things that you try to figure out how to help with.
Well, that's Fantastic, Jesse. This whole program has been revealing and amazing. We are to wrap now, but thank you for leaving us with that beautiful memory, because you do make a ton of impact on the world, and it's an amazing study on what can be done in USAID. So, audience, please join me in some virtual thanks for Jesse lending his time and his expertise, and his family letting him go for this program. Jesse, thank you so much. You've been fantastic.
Thank you, everyone.
Now, everyone, we have a quick poll. We'd like you to give us a little bit of feedback here on this program. So you'll see the poll pop on your screen. What do you enjoy most about virtual events? This will help us guide our strategy for what virtual events we put forth in the future. So take 5 seconds to just give us an answer on that, if you will. In the meantime, please note that our next Lunch with Eaters event is going to be held on Friday, September 11th from 12 to 1 p.m., 2 weeks from today. And there were a few questions that we weren't able to get to today, so we apologize for that due to time constraints. But if you do want to reach out, you can email us at alumni@uci.edu, and that way we'll be able to forward some information, hopefully to Jesse, and see if we can get a response. So feel free to reach out to us. This webinar was recorded, so there was a lot of great information here. If you'd like to watch this again or forward it to some of your Anteater friends, please do. We'll send a link to the recording in the thank you email that you receive, as well as some of the other information that we provide. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us. And thank you again, Jesse, for all of your time. And it's wonderful to see you. Have a great rest of the day, and hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.